Hi, I'm Alison from Alison's Astrology, and I'm talking to you today about the astrology that's going to happen the week of the 1st of December. So, as I'm speaking to you this morning, the new moon's already happened. The new moon in Sagittarius, that was at 6:21 UK time at 9 degrees of Sag. So that's a fiery sign. So we've got a fiery new moon that brings hope and optimism in these dark days before the winter solstice. So Sagittarius is a yang sign. Yang is outgoing. It wants to take action in the world. It wants to be out there. It's sociable. Traditionally, a real party sign, Sagittarius. And mutable, of course, means it's adaptable and versatile. So this moon, it may be just trying to kind of work out what its intentions are for this new lunar cycle. But in fire, it's going to be sort of optimistic and generous. And fire is bright. It throws light on situations. It brightens things up. And Sagittarius in particular has a quality of honesty and optimism. It sees the world as a journey, as an adventure. So this might be the start of a new journey in some sense, a new way of taking action, a new way of just approaching things, something to consider. But it's early days yet, so you may want to wait until you see the crescent in the sky, that lunar crescent, to decide on what the journey will be and set your positive intentions for this new lunar cycle. And the moon is making a flowing trine to Mars in Leo. So Leo is a fixed fire sign, so it's more stable, it's more determined, less inclined to adapt to different situations. But this is giving the moon some stability. But because Mars is stationing retrograde, it's maybe asking ourselves to pay attention to inner fire, asking ourselves what we want. What are the intentions we really want to set? A time to maybe just stop and explore a little bit our inner worlds. And then there's a square aspect from the new moon to Saturn in Pisces, which is challenging us a little bit, maybe to find our compassion, to find our faith and hope, because Saturn, of course, always to do with what we have to do, our responsibilities and our duties. So there's that challenge of balancing what we must do with what we really want to do. That's the challenge of always in our life, isn't it? So there it is. And Jupiter's also about meaning. Jupiter is retrograde, and that's ruling Sagittarius. So the ruler of the new moon currently retrograde in the opposite sign of Gemini. So again, suggesting that idea of expanding inwardly and just of stopping and exploring options too, actually, because retrograde planets may be about thinking, not ploughing forward, but stopping and just looking around, exploring and seeing what the options are before we really decide where we're going. So on Monday, 2nd of December, we've got a sweeping trine from Venus to Uranus, and that's suggesting some positive practical connection or communication, maybe just something, an unexpected bonus from a friend or in our relationships. That's just a little something nice on Monday. And then Wednesday, it might get a bit more complicated on the 4th because Mercury, our planet of communication, is opposing Jupiter. So these two are in opposite signs and they're in each other's signs too. So they have a compatibility, what we call a mutual reception. Jupiter wants to see the bigger picture and find the meaning, while Mercury is always focused on the detail. And this opposition is trying to balance the two and maybe create wider connections and find solutions to something. And that square from the Sun to Saturn that's been growing also perfects on Wednesday evening, again suggesting the conflict between this optimism in Sagittarius, where the Sun is, and the desire to grow that we have, and the necessity and what we have to do. And also, I mean, if you're Sagittarius Sun and you've got maybe a Capricorn partner, you might find there's some conflict there too, because sometimes, the rulers of the signs, when they're in conflict like that, or challenging each other, you can find that the people who, in a sense, represent or symbolize those signs also challenge each other a little bit. So that's just a little interesting point to look out for. So So for those who aren't listening from Europe, actually, the Mercury Kazemi, when the Mercury is at the heart of the sun, and this is when it's going retrograde back into the sun, takes place early on the morning of Friday the 6th. That's 3:16 UK time. And this a Mercury Kazemi can herald an understanding of something or a communication, something that you've been struggling with, and there's suddenly that aha moment. But maybe if you're asleep, it'll come to you through your dreams. And then later on Friday, that's just 11:30 at night in the UK. So obviously it'll be Saturday morning in Europe. Our planet of drive and our drive and energy, that's Mars, actually does station retrograde. So that's the point at which it pauses and it turns. So it's going back now from 6 degrees of Leo, and it will travel right back through to 17 degrees of Cancer. And that's going to be, it reaches there on the 24th of February, 2025. So we've got this essentially 3 months in which we're expected, or this is a time given to us, if you like, to rethink goals, to consolidate our goals. Leo to do with who we are, how we express ourselves, and then Cancer is more self-protective, going back into our family situations and perhaps revisiting issues there or some things we need to sort out or want to address. So this time is important, this tracking back, planets do it. There are times in our lives when we just need to stop and think, is this actually what we're aiming for? So this is a good time for this, party of course, but it's going to be a bit quieter this year. So pay special attention actually to Friday and Saturday if you've got Sun, Moon or Ascendant in Mars-ruled signs, that's Scorpio and Aries, because this might signify a change in how you approach things. I mean, it might signify that for us all, because we all have those signs somewhere in our lives. But if they're important, if they rule your Sun or Moon or your Ascendant, they could be especially important. And they might also signify, with Mars retrograde, you might find you have a dip in energy. You just don't have the energy to go forward and do your usual kind of outgoing stuff in the world. So again, that time for coming into yourself and just reflecting a little bit. Early Saturday morning on the 7th of December, Venus moves into Aquarius. So this is from Capricorn, where Venus our relationships, our values are to do with responsibilities, duties, building structures in the world. Into Aquarius, where we're looking really at more freedom, independence. So this is going to be amplified for Venus by immediate contact with Pluto, because Pluto, of course, is still sitting there, at the beginning of Aquarius. So all the planets that move into Aquarius are going to crash into Pluto immediately. So it's going to amplify whatever the issues are. And it could create power issues too around freedom and independence in relationships, in our friendship groups, perhaps. It may deepen some connections. But we may also be asking with Pluto there if some friendships are actually serving us, or if, we might need to let them go or revisit how we approach them at this time. And then Saturday night, just before midnight, Neptune, that planet of dreams, goes direct at 27 Pisces. So if you've got planets or angles there, this is important for you. And it's good news probably for the Pisces among us. One of our ruling planets going direct is about, moving forward for us, really. But it's also about themes of global compassion. But Neptune, you have to be a bit careful with it. It can also be about sacrifice. It's a spiritual planet. It's about merging with the whole. It's nice that it's going to be direct around the festive season, I think. But it's beginning its exit journey now from Pisces. And in 2025, it's going to leave and move into Aries. And that's a different story altogether. And it's only returning very briefly at the end of 2025 to its home sign. So those Pisces amongst us might like to enjoy these last few months of Neptune in our own sign, and to just profit from the dreams and the imagination that lends. And that's it for this week. So I look forward to talking to you next week for all the exciting astrology that's happening then. Okay. And thanks very much. See you again.